And now a preview of our first episode with Jason Burke.
Great work over the past couple of years in thinking about neuroplasticity for rehabilitation, for physical rehabilitation. And some of the research has kind of focused on this iterative learning paradigm. Again, very similar to the way that we train AI, but it's basically in effect retraining the human brain, where the patient, as opposed to just trying to do motor memory retraining, there's actually a visualization component associated with the rehabilitation program. So patients, for example, might use a virtual reality headset where they're consciously trying to move a limb on a screen that corresponds with their own limb. And as the brain gets more and more used to being able to move that, their skill level with their available motor skills kind of goes up. So I think it's really exciting where it can go.
Welcome to the BioTalk Unzipped podcast, where we unzip the stories behind medical progress by sharing the latest and greatest advances in biopharmaceuticals and medical technologies in a fun, entertaining, and enlightening format. And now your co-hosts, Gregory Austin and Dr. Chad Briscoe. Hello, and welcome to BioTalk Unzipped, where we unzip, unlock, and uncover the stories behind medical progress. I'm your host, Gregory Austin from Kansas City, a life science enthusiast from the quality and regulatory space. Along with me from North Carolina is my excellent co-host, Dr. Chad Briscoe. Chad is a bioanalytical scientific expert, and we publish BioTalk Unzipped twice a month and bring experts from different corners of the pharmaceutical, biotech, and med device worlds to share their innovations and insights, career journeys, and the personal stories to the show. Also from North Carolina, we have the esteemed Jason Burke. Jason is a seasoned strategist, AI, and data sciences expert, currently serving as Chief Strategy Officer and AI Analytics Lead at Creo in Durham, North Carolina. With a profound passion for leveraging emerging technologies to benefit patients worldwide, Jason's career is a testament to his commitment to driving innovation in healthcare. Throughout his career, Jason has showcased his expertise in strategic planning, venture capital, and private equity investments, particularly in emerging technologies across the life sciences, healthcare, and IT. Notably, he has played pivotal roles in designing and establishing multiple organizations from the ground up, including founding the health industry's first analytics think tank. As a published author, Jason's work has been recognized by industry executives and academia alike, with citations in esteemed publications such as Forbes, Fortune, and peer-reviewed journals. His expertise spans various domains, including strategy, analytics, research, innovation, and leadership. Currently serving as an adjunct professor at Duke University's School of Business, Jason shares his wealth of knowledge with the future business leaders. He also has an illustrious career spanning leadership roles at UNC Healthcare, SAS Institute, Microsoft. Not to mention, he's a black belt in Toshindo. Jason brings a wealth of experience and insights to the table. We're honored to have him to join us today to the show to share his expertise. Welcome to the show, Jason. How are you?
I'm great, Gregory. Thank you so much for having me. Good to see you and Chad as well.
You bet. It's great to have you. And as a thank you for being here, BioTalk Unzipped will make a donation to your favorite charity. And before we get into getting to know more about you, Jason, we're going to start with our first segment, New News.
New news.
New news. Reported on March 8th of this year, the MIT Technology Review, Cassandra Williard reviewed many uses of mini organs. Mini isn't small. That isn't a lot. Also known as organoids, scientists are using them to screen drug candidates, grow viruses, and build biocomputers. So there's too much in this article to unpack everything, but with the time we have, but I want to focus on some of the good these organoids are doing and some of the controversial issues that are coming up with it. So I'll hit you with a couple of these things and I'll ask you what you think about it in a minute, Jason. So first off, organoids are derived from fetal cells floating in amniotic fluid. And they are these tiny 3D cell clusters that mimic some of the features of a full-sized organ. So some of the things the good that they're doing in drug development is speeding things up. Some say about 90% of drug candidates fail in human trials because preclinical testing occurs in cells and rodents. Neither are perfect models. Cells are too simple. And let's face it, mice aren't humans. So these organoids are speeding up the process and accuracy of drug testing. On the controversial side, researchers are also creating brain organoids and making them these mini biocomputers. So one clump of brain cells in a dish learned to play the video game Pong, if you remember that back in the Atari days. And another one was used to try and decode audio signals from people speaking Japanese. Very clearly, it's an early stage of research, but ethical concerns are starting to arise. Could a biocomputer become conscious? Organoids arise from cells taken from an individual. What rights would that person have? Would the biocomputer have rights? And what about rodents? They actually have brain organoids being implanted in them. Yes, that's happening as well. So, are we looking at a future Frankenstein situation? Not really sure. So, Jason, hit you with a lot of things. What is your take on all this, and what do you think are the pros and cons of some of these situations in organoids?
Well, I think it's interesting the parallels in what you're talking about and what's happening in the AI field right now. So many of the exact same questions you could just unplug uh, Organoid and plug in AI, and we'd be asking the exact same kinds of questions here. Look, I mean, this is part of the journey towards novel ways of computational sciences, and it's also part of the journey towards precision medicine. So to me, I think it's not a matter of are we going down the path. I think it's a matter of what kind of guardrails can we put along the path
Mm-hmm.
so that we do it right. What's your take, Chad?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking as much when I read the article because what we do is Greg and I know in advance and we're trying to kind of surprise you guys, get your hot take on it. And when I read it, I was more focused maybe as a scientist on the opportunities to study these things. And one of the comments in the article was that if you wanted to study if you wanted to study a brick house, you don't learn much by looking one brick at a time. And at the same time, if you want to study an organ and how an organ system works, you can't look at it one cell at a time. But if you're doing in vitro testing, you're traditionally doing it one cell at a time. Versus now they're able to put this in a petri dish and really do this study and do this investigation. So I think again, we have so many tremendous advantages. If we want to study really how the brain works and understand how the brain works, we can kind of program a little teeny tiny mini brain. This Pong thing is kind of freaky. I'm not sure I'm worried about it yet, it's there has to have been a cartoon I saw at some point in my childhood where there was like a brain that lived on its own. I seem
Mm-hmm.
to, yeah, like a brain that just lived on its own with no body or something. It's but it's awesome, right? I mean, I can only imagine. I guess they're, you think about the brain interface that Elon Musk, we talked about that actually on a previous
Mm-hmm.
episode. You probably, yeah, Jason's certainly heard about that. And if you think about that brain interface that they made, I mean, they likely were using some, organoids or something in that research to get to where they're at. I doubt the first
Right.
thing they did is just started sticking probes in somebody's brain. So the possibilities this opens up are awesome. Scientifically, they're just awesome.
Yeah, and my graduate work was actually in cognitive neuroscience, and so this is really kind of close to my heart, and certainly the implications for BCI, brain computer interfaces, are huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we know today is it's very difficult to think about the brain operating at very small scales. That it's much more useful to think about it operating at a system as a system, and looking at things that are happening as a system. So I think as we can scale the science up to help us do that, we're going to have more and more opportunities to really do some amazing things in terms of improving human health, particularly as it relates to uh, mental health and anything related to CNS, of course.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if we could learn to train a brain, right? I mean, that's a little
Yeah,
bit of that's what, kind of it almost seems like Elon Musk maybe jumped a step, but I think that's his thing. Whereas this is sort of saying, hey, let's build it up. But I was just thinking about traumatic brain injury. Man, if you
yeah,
could learn how to retrain someone's
Wow.
brain,
Yeah.
with electrical signals or whatever you're needing to do to make that happen, that's powerful. That's really, really powerful. Yeah.
absolutely. Actually,
Cool.
intentionally triggering neuroplasticity, right?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned
Yeah.
Neuralink. There's actually a post that came out, an article that came out recently about that. The next step is they showed the patient.
Hmm.
I don't know, did you see that? Where he
Okay.
was using just his mind to tell the computer what to do, and he was playing chess and playing
Wow.
music and doing all sorts of things. So that part of the the engineering side is working. So
Yeah.
in real
Yeah.
time, it's pretty
And
wild.
there's been some really great work over the past couple of years in thinking about neuroplasticity for rehabilitation, for physical rehabilitation, and some of the research has kind of focused on this iterative learning paradigm. Again, very similar to the way that we train AI, but it's basically in effect retraining the human brain, where the patient, as opposed to just trying to do motor memory retraining, there's actually a visualization component associated with the rehabilitation program. So patients, for example, might use a virtual reality headset where they're consciously trying to move a limb on a screen that corresponds with their own limb. And as the brain gets more and more used to being able to move that, their skill level with their available motor skills kind of goes up. So I think it's really exciting where it can go.
It is exciting. It is exciting. And then, like you said, Jason, I think we can learn from the guardrails of AI and AI and this type of research, right? It all kind of goes down the same pipe of how do you responsibly go down these paths with these really innovative, uh, yeah, these really innovative types of progress in science.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool,
Great. Well,
cool.
thank you for that feedback. So, Jason, your journey through various prestigious roles in healthcare and technology sectors is remarkable. Could you share a pivotal moment or maybe an experience that have kind of shaped your career path and led you to focus on the intersection of strategic planning, medicinal science, and emerging technologies?
Yeah, sure. So when I got out of graduate school, I went to work in the pharmaceutical industry. I started my career in a company called Burroughs Wellcome, which many M&A transactions later is now called GSK. And I went in basically in clinical development, doing database programming and safety and efficacy kinds of analysis, basically phase 2 through 4 research. Um, and I had the opportunity while I was there to get involved in a initiative that was looking at how emerging technologies could transform the way we do clinical research. And I just got really fortunate in that the director of the division, a guy named John Cavalito, kind of took me under his wing and said, "Look, I want you to work on this and kind of help us build up this kind of new capability." Um, and that really changed the entire direction of my career. Like my entire career from that point forward, basically has focused on how emerging technologies, science, and business kind of come together. And it was kind of those. I guess we all have these wayfaring moments in our careers, right? Where like you find yourself in a spot, and all of a sudden it's like, yes, this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is the kinds of work that I should be
Nice.
doing. And so that's really characterized pretty much everything I've done since then. I've changed a little bit of the context that I do it in. So I did it in life sciences for a while. I did it in the technology industry for life sciences and healthcare for a while. I did it for healthcare for a while, and then now I kind of do it across the board for all of the different stakeholders that are in the industry.
Perfect, perfect. And now you're chief strategy officer and AI analytics lead at Creo, and you play a crucial role in kind of driving innovation, I assume. And what emerging technologies or trends in AI and data sciences do you believe will have maybe some of the most significant impact on the healthcare industry in coming years?
Yeah. Well, we could probably spin up an entire new podcast series on emerging technologies
Right.
and life
Yeah,
sciences, and we would never get bored,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Such
for
a,
sure.
a rich ecosystem to kind of operate in. Um, you know, uh, right at this particular moment in time, there's just a tremendous amount of interest around artificial intelligence, and so that's probably occupying the lion's share of my mind at the moment. We look at some other areas as well, such as quantum computing and emerging applications in the bioanalysis space. But really, AI is where most of the organizations that I work with, but that's where most of their attention is right now. And really, a lot of the questions around that are less about the technology. They're more about strategy. They're more about, given this dramatic rise that we've seen, the rapid progression of AI related capabilities that are available in the market. What does that mean? Like, how do you think about that from a business perspective? Does it, for example, change the business strategy? Does it change the business model? How do you think about looking at that from a capability maturity perspective? So these things are going to continue to evolve at a very, very rapid pace, much faster than any single organization will be able to institutionalize them, right? So what do you do with that? What do you do with that rate of change and innovation? How do you think about that? Particularly in highly regulated industries, where we're not necessarily known for being highly agile in terms of our ability to go grab new stuff off the shelf and do stuff
Yeah.
with it for all the right
Yeah.
reasons, right? So a lot of my attention's kind of focused on that. A big part of that is really doing market research and educating people on what it is and what it's not. And given the amount of media hype that is circulating right at this moment in time around AI, there's just a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty that people have around it
Yeah.
that I spend time working through with them.
So that was making me wonder. So I can imagine you get an engagement, and someone says, "Hey, we want Creo to come in and assess our technological readiness to launch our company into the future. Help us, right?"
Yeah.
And they, you know, they probably don't even really know where they're at, and or some of them, right? You get all sorts of right. So just maybe what is that process? What's that? Where do you even start with something like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, usually the point I'm getting involved is often way before the AI question gets raised. It's often about the core business strategy itself. So, how does this company go from where they are to the next tier of growth, whatever that next tier might look like?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just organic growth, taking their existing business model and doing more better of it in different places. Maybe there's an inorganic component where they want to partner or buy or be bought or something that they feel like is important for kind of getting their innovations to the next place in the market. So a lot of it's kind of focused on that. But what I'm hearing more of is actually kind of top down from the investors, from the boards, asking the executive leadership teams, what are you doing with AI? What's your AI strategy? And of course, in many cases, it's like, well, we're just trying to wrap our heads
Mm.
around it, right? Like we're watching the same news reports that you all are. We see the same really impressive YouTube videos that you all do. Like we're trying to think through some of that. So we're actually in the midst of working on an executive boot camp for life sciences leaders that focuses specifically on AI. It's called the AI Boot Camp for life sciences executives, and really the focus of that is to take people through a strategic planning process with AI as the core question. So, given kind of what your company is and where you are and what you're trying to accomplish, how should you think about AI? And obviously, a big part of that is kind of level setting what is AI. For a lot of industry leaders, everything was quiet, and then all of a sudden, this AI UFO landed on their front lawn, and it's like, where did this come from? Like, what?
Well,
what
and every computer company or software,
Hmm.
every technology company, every technology company that approaches us now calls it
Hmm.
AI. Whatever the new
Right.
thing is they're doing, it's AI. Whether it's just a new piece of software, it's an AI driven software, or it was designed with AI, or it's
Right.
machine learning. So we'll call it AI because people know what that is. And
That's right.
yeah, so that's it's definitely it's definitely the buzzword attached to everything.
Hmm.
So I'm even finding some of what I have to do is sort through what actually what is it, right? Is it
Yeah.
AI? Is it machine learning? Is it just a new piece of software that they're using it for the marketing? It's kind of an interesting challenge in itself. But all of the journey that you just described sounds so familiar to the journey we've been down over the last year as well. Even right down to the board, saying, "Hey, what are you guys doing about?" About AI, and then the executive team turn around looking at each other and goes, "Who really understands this?" And
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
and how, yeah, AI, do we do AI for the sake of AI, or do we, how does that fit with our strategy? And it's
Yeah.
and they're interesting questions. I mean, it's been a
Yeah.
topic of every leadership meeting we've had for the last year for sure. So Yeah.
And often, the triggering event is, hey, I saw the puppies playing in the snow, on YouTube, that this machine created this video and it was like photorealistic. And, but what's interesting about the generative AI space is that it's so accessible to anyone. Like because it's native language, it's form factors that people engage in on an everyday basis. It's accessible in a way that other forms of AI have not been. And so, you know, literally in the first 30 minutes of the boot camp is like, AI is not new. Like, stop. This is not a new thing.
It wasn't born in
Yeah.
March of last year when Chat
Exactly.
GPT made
Yeah.
GPT-3 public, right? Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, we've
yeah.
been working on this for a long, long time. So let's talk about the different kind of pieces of it, and really starting to kind of differentiate. You're seeing a lot of generative AI. Let's first just talk about the different types of AI, because generative AI is one really cool form of AI, but it's not the only form, and it may not even be the most important form for your organization at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. And you mentioned earlier, Jason, about the quantum computing. Are you following that pretty
mhm.
closely? I mean, are they getting close to this? My concerns are there doesn't seem to be a way to secure it. With cybersecurity, and it's so powerful that it could really disrupt things in some very negative ways. How close are we, and how concerned should we be?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, that's one of the big concerns on the horizon. Um, I think we're seeing quantum computing accelerate at a pretty rapid pace, but we've not solved some of the fundamental growth barriers yet either. And so, things like being able to maintain coherence across diverse environments kind of still a challenge. um, and and we also haven't really landed on a standard architecture for it. There are multiple competing architectures in that space, and the PC explosion happened when IBM pushed a standard architecture, right? All of a sudden, IBM could put out
Mm-hmm.
PCs, and so
Mm-hmm.
could Compaq and Dell and HP, and
Yep.
everybody
Yep.
could kind of get engaged on it. So we're just not at that point in time right now. But I think we are starting to see where quantum computing can be used in what I would consider kind of pilot environments to kind of showcase the differential capabilities that it offers. My own take is I don't think it's going to be a computing platform that replaces conventional computing in the foreseeable future. I think it's a different type of
Mhm.
use case that you focus on with that, and I think most of those use cases for those of us that have been around the block a few times is going to feel more like a mainframe than it feels like a
Yeah.
laptop,
Mm-hmm.
and just in terms of the way those kind of capabilities get accessed. But it's interesting because a lot of the use cases that really showcase the power of quantum computing show up in life sciences. They show up in the kinds of problem spaces that life sciences has to tackle, things like complex simulations and molecular and protein design, things that require a lot of computational capacity, and in some cases, just beyond our current conventional computing capacity to do in a reasonable period of time. Those are actually the kinds of algorithms that quantum computing are well designed to address. So I definitely think it's coming. I think it'll come a little bit faster, probably than many people anticipate. And though I've not stayed as dialed in on the security front as some of the other aspects of it, I do know that the folks in the conventional computing arena who are looking at things like encryption algorithms are in the midst of developing algorithms that would be much more complicated for a quantum computing system to defeat. So I take heart in that we're not going to have to stop shopping on Amazon
Right.
anytime
Right.
soon. But
Good.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, Jason. We were talking about the quantum computing and the AI and your background in pharma, all this. And one of the blogs that you wrote not too long ago was talking about the FDA's IT strategy, right? We work in a regulated industry, and most of the folks that we're talking to here on BioTalk Unzipped are in that space. and I know the FDA has been working hard on the IT strategy with AI and all the other highlight. So can you, this is an area I should know better. So secretly, I brought you on here to get some free consulting. Tell me about a little bit about what the FDA IT strategy and kind of the highlights of that blog, and what's really important to know, and what are they trying to do over there to stay up to speed with all this. It's a hard job.
Yeah, no doubt. And maybe it's useful to start this by just saying that the FDA, like many large organizations, has a pretty big task in developing an IT strategy because when you think about IT strategies, what you're really trying to do is take several different, what I would call business imperatives, things that an organization needs to be able to do, and you're trying to develop a common pathway forward that balances the needs across those different imperatives. So, for example, an imperative might be we need to be able to scale up the computing capacity of our systems on kind of an exponential basis,
Yeah.
and we need to control cost. Well, it's hard to do those. If you're in IT, it's hard to do
Yeah.
those two things at the same time, right? So how do you think about developing go forward strategies that address these different imperatives? And that problem space gets more and more complex the larger the stakeholder community is that you're trying to serve. And of course, the FDA's stakeholder community is quite large, and most of their stakeholder community has pretty diverse IT enterprise architectures themselves. And so, for the past couple of decades, I think part of the whole interoperability challenge in the industry has been related to heterogeneity of enterprise architectures. The fact that even if you leave the FDA out of this and you just look at the pharmaceutical industry writ large, there isn't a lot of consistency that's other than what's mandated by regulatory submissions. There's not a lot of consistency in the way that people think about developing IT strategies. Now, historically, the attention around IT strategies have really focused on a couple of different areas. One is roadmaps. So, how do we know when we're taking old stuff out and putting new stuff in?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a component. Another component is interoperability. So, how do we make sure that when we bring new stuff in, that it can talk to the other things that are in our enterprise, and do that reasonably well. Um, another issue has historically been security and management. So every vendor maintains their products on their own schedule, and all products have things like security flaws. And so, how do we think about keeping a stable and secure environment while at the same time acknowledging that all of these kind of changes are coming into that environment? I think all of those factors are true for us today, just like they were 20 years ago. And today we also have additional issues related to data governance, data aggregation, data standardization, thinking about ways in which the industry and the FDA can collaborate in a more meaningful way around the development of novel drugs, therapies, medical devices, things like that. So so when I read the FDA guidance, I was like, well, good, great that someone's kind of looking at that,
Yeah.
um, and they're being transparent about it. But I also think when we're thinking about developing IT strategies, it's useful to step back and think about, well, what do we know about building strategies in general? Like, why don't more organizations have stronger, better strategies? Just in general, leave the technology piece out of it. And there's several reasons for that. One of them is many organizations don't actually have a strategic planning discipline or process that they're going through, which focuses on articulating very specific goals that have to be accomplished. A strategy should be telling you what are the things that you're going to do, and it should be really good at educating you on what are the things you're agreeing not to do, because you cannot do everything. And if you don't say no to otherwise attractive things, you're going to end up diluting your effort across a bunch of different areas. So, so I think that's one area that both the FDA and the industry could collaborate more on, is getting alignment on those very specific business goals that should be driving the prioritization of both sides' resources, right? And identifying how to really unlock the next level of value creation around them.
Yeah. So, no, I thought that was really important what you said about strategy. It's not just agreeing this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and these are the steps. That we're also agreeing what not to do. And I think it's just as important to point out so people understand what their own guardrails are within an organization and how they're going to operate and achieve their goals. Right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and I was thinking as you were talking also, back in 1997 when the FDA released 21 CFR Part 11, we thought that was crazy and starting to climb a giant mountain, and that was just the molehill at the beginning of it all, right? But it sure did throw the industry, and still does kind of throw the industry into a lot of extra work. I mean, all of us deal with that one bit of regulation in our day jobs, if you will. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
fascinating.
it's
It's
a
a big
great
challenge.
example of a regulation and an initiative, because I had just been in the industry for a few years when that hit. So that was actually my first exposure to FDA regulations, was 21 CFR Part 11,
Yeah, nice.
because it was just really interesting,
Yeah,
right? Um, if you look back on it now, there's a lot of 21 CFR Part 11 that is somewhat akin to eat well and exercise, right? Like it's stuff that it's just
Yeah.
like good hygiene things that
yeah,
you need to
yeah.
be doing. But what's interesting about it is the mythos that gets created around it, that actually introduces all kinds of barriers to advancing the industry in terms of innovation and technology adoption and things like that. A good part of my career over the past 20 years or so has basically been trying to change the perception that grows organically around how regulations like that can be supported and implemented. I
hmm
was in one organization, and for they were working on software, and every time they would release a piece of software, they would generate between 600 and 800 pages of documentation
Mm.
manually. And I'm like, and literally printing it. Like there's a cart,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
moving
yeah.
and I'm like, guys,
Yeah.
why are you doing that? Oh, well, the FDA requires us to do it. No, they don't. That's not what the
Yeah.
regulation says. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I worry a lot about that right now in terms of the movements that we're seeing related to AI. The EU just passed the AI Act, which uses a similar kind of risk-oriented mindset in thinking about AI capabilities that the agency was using in 21 CFR Part 11. We haven't seen that kind of legislation advance here in the U.S., though there's certainly all kinds of interest around it. But we need to be smart about the way we think about managing the variability with these, so that we continue to
For
push the
sure.
innovation.
And for some of our audience members who aren't familiar with what Part 11 is, it's a part of the guidance that really explains what we're going to do with computer system validations and how computer systems are going to be regulated and addressed, from an SOP standpoint. And so as we see everything getting smarter, right? Instruments, facilities, equipment everything's going to be attached to some kind of software. They're all going to be under that Part 11 regulations here sooner or later, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Everything seems to be getting smarter
Feel
with
your
me.
pain.
Myself, I'm operating on legacy hardware, Chad. So like
Yep.
I appreciate that.
I tell
My
everybody at work, like it's only
Yep.
a 640K buffer. Like if it's beyond 640K, it doesn't get in.
I make it, I make it my goal to hire the smartest people I can find. I mean, that was a lesson that I learned many years ago, was to hire the best and smartest people that you can find. And if I sit in a room of everybody on my team and every single person smarter than me, then I feel like I've done my job the right way. It gets easier and easier every year. But
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, Please subscribe, like, and comment. We love to hear your feedback. And tune in on May 15th for part 2 with Jason Burke.